Hey y'all, this is Culture Soup, where tech, culture, and business collide. It's a podcast that spoons up everything hot from social media. I'm your host, L. Michelle Smith, and each episode we bring you some of the most notable and not yet notable thought leaders in tech, business, and culture. The year was 2005. I'd been in business with my agency for about 3 years and scored a couple of huge contracts. Well, huge for us. Retainer contracts with big brands. Brands like Alberto Culver and also Church's Chicken. Church's Chicken is based in Atlanta, Georgia. And during that time, I needed some help on the ground. Instead of hiring up in Atlanta, I decided to bring on consultants. One of those consultants was a guy named Matt Stevens. Matt was always handy to have on site with the client when we needed a high touch as soon as possible. Matt's work was always great, but you know what? One day Matt told me that his heart was not in public relations, and I understand that. I too was doing public relations to make ends meet, to make money, to make a living. Before long, Matt had put PR down and decided to branch out on something totally different. This was a time frame that I like to call the golden age of blogging. Not everyone was doing it, but those who were and doing it well were beginning to get money and attention from brands as well as news outlets, cable news outlets. In fact, Matt's blog would take off. He's a political commentator. Yes, politics is culture, and we're here to talk about it today. I want you to meet my friend of 14 years, Matt Stevens, political commentator and podcaster. All right, everybody, I am so excited that we have my friend Matt Stevens, who I've known since, the year 2000 and what?
I think that was 2005 we met.
Yeah, it's been a while. Look, we are old friends.
No, 05, 06, something like that.
Yeah, 2005. He is a political commentator and a podcaster, just like me. But man, is your job cut out for you this election season. Matt, what is going on?
What isn't going on is the better question. That's how I always start. It's like, what isn't going on? Like, tell me some good news. But I can hardly find any. I mean, there's so much stuff going on nationally. And then, of course, Trump is the kind of the person that everybody talks about.
There you go.
But if you think about it, now you've got the Attorney General, you've got these states with the abortion issues that they've each got going on.
You've got Mueller.
You've got Mueller. Now he's finally spoken out after about 122 years of silence.
And boy, was he strategic about what he said. But we all know what he said.
Yeah, he's very strategic. And basically what he said in a nutshell was read the report. Because I already wrote it, and I'm not talking about anything else.
Right.
Have a good day.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I resigned.
There you go. Okay, bye-bye.
Right. Gotta go.
So, everybody that's on here is, of course, a friend, but they all sit at the intersection of tech, culture, and business. And nobody's doing that more than you, because culture politics is culture, right? It is its own culture. It drives cultures. I mean, good grief. Such a big beast in the whole cultural conversation. Business, you are an entrepreneur, solopreneur.
I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're digging into that a little bit. And of course, tech, you're a podcaster. Started out as a blogger.
Started out as a blogger. Do work on social media, obviously, because of the blog. Did that. And then I'm still on social media even after, now I'm podcasting. And so, I'm all right there together.
Well, and usually we give the whole, where can you follow my guest at the end of the show. But today I want you to put those handles out there now. Because you're right. You're always tweeting. You're always sharing. Do you do YouTube at all? I can't remember.
I don't do I don't do YouTube. I've done it before, but I feel really comfortable and at home with audio. And instead of video, because then you gotta look
a certain way.
The audio has to match up with the video, otherwise you got this mouth talking and you hear the sound and it doesn't match up. But no, Twitter is a great place to reach me. That's at Mr. Prune Juice. That's MR Prune Juice, like what your grandma drinks. And then my Instagram is the same thing, Mr. Prune Juice, except there's MR_Prune_Juice. So those are like two great ways to reach me when you want to know about what's going on in politics. But really, for me, Twitter is my thing.
Yeah.
Because Twitter is anybody in politics, anybody in political media. Most times you can find them on Twitter.
I was going to say, Twitter is like the medium of choice for political pundits and even the players, you know. And, the POTUS.
Oh, yeah, the POTUS. That's his thing. It was even, really big before he got in office. But all of your presidential candidates have Twitter presence. A lot of your major government departments, your state level stuff. Anybody really moving and shaking in politics, especially the voices like mine and the voices I look up to, they're all usually on Twitter.
And you know what? Shout out to the Obamas, because Mr. Obama, Barack, 44. Okay, moment of silence for 44.
Right.
Because Culture Soup, we honor 44, right?
We miss Come back to us.
Yes, but he ushered in that digital age of politics like nobody else. Wouldn't you agree? There are books written on it.
There are, yeah. And he had a really good team around him. That was the big thing about Obama. I think it took a little bit, if you do a little bit of digging, it took a little bit more kind of coaxing to get him actually on Twitter. And to get Mrs. Michelle Obama on Twitter, but once they did it, they were really. He was really the administration. His administration was the one that ushered that in, and they did it really well. I mean, but he put the right people in place. Yeah. I really have to give a shout out to his team.
Really did, and during the elections, especially in 2008, it was so new to all of us, and he was just killing it. But hey, Matt, what do you think? We have a Culture Soup moment.
It works for me.
Okay, good. We just talked about this, right? You cannot get on Twitter, Facebook, heck, Instagram, which is supposed to be so safe, without, you can't even avoid the political conversation. There's so much going on right now. It's unprecedented. I mean, the I word is out there, as POTUS calls it. Impeachment is like the word of the day. It's probably trending now. But even if you went back to Nixon, way before the internet, it was not this off the chain. Do you think?
No, I definitely think so. It's a really weird moment when you talk about Nixon versus now. I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that, like you said, there was no social media back then. A lot of high crimes, as they call them, going on back then. A lot of high crimes allegedly going on now. But we have that social media to amplify everything. Yeah. And so things that we are now just learning about what happened with Nixon, they were going on. Yeah. But our parents and grandparents just didn't have a way of accessing that as quickly as we do. That doesn't mean that it isn't crazier now, because you definitely, when you talk about Cultural Soup moment, I don't know if that's soup or if that's something we don't want to eat and drink.
It's a culture swamp. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, swamp. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and always on nature of it, and then the inclination to respond to each and everything that happens at every moment. I mean, this is a whole different beast. And I think that kind of started to usher itself in around W, right? W was probably the first to start to see the blogs and the electronic media and digital. Right. Maybe not so much, the Twitters and the Facebooks, because that came along really big in like 2007. But he was probably the first president that had to respond to almost real-time news, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, actually, if you take it back, we could go back and forth about this, but even take it back to the end of Bill Clinton's term, because that's how the Starr Report that that he got wrapped up in, that was actually released on the World Wide Web, as it was the known back then. Yeah. And you had to have your dial-up connection, but that's how a lot of people found out about what had happened with Monica Lewinsky, was because people were getting on these huge computers and they were using their dial-up internet connections and reading Ken Starr's report. So that was probably the first kind of big instance. But yeah, George W. Bush, he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. But yeah, his presidency, especially that second term, was the one where we saw the internet, as kind of the medium of choice for news and blogs and politics and all that kind of stuff.
So how do you sort it out? Because you have to use a lot of different news sources, right? Okay, we can't have this conversation without talking about the fakery, right? So there's plenty of junk out there, but a lot of this junk is sophisticated. Barring the Russians or however you want to put it, there are enough people here in the United States that are putting out bad news. It's not even real. And I say bad, I mean fake. And I don't mean it the way POTUS means it. I mean not true.
Like not true, not researched news. I think the first thing is prayer.
Give it a good prayer first.
Say a good prayer.
Yes, Lord help us.
Exactly. I come from kind of a PR and, journalist-ish background.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Go figure.
But, but I come from that world, so I'm partial to certain outlets and to certain ways of reporting and the way a story should be structured sometimes, and so that helps. Also, kind of researching and seeing other stories that I know that have been written, information that I know is true, checking it against different outlets. And if I see something about a candidate or a piece of news or this, that, and the other, always don't get married to one source. I go to 2, 3, 4 sources if I have to look up and see, what is the story arc here? What are the facts? What are things that are kind of called into question and things like that? Yeah. I also like to go to, like, for instance, we talked about Mueller. It's great to turn on MSNBC, CNN, et cetera, and hear the talking heads, pundits, some people would call me, and hear their take on what is going on. It's very easy to digest in that way. I love that. But also actually going to the source myself really helps. And I know a lot of people out there listening to this great podcast don't have time like that. But sometimes with certain issues, I have to go directly to the source. So, like, for instance, I'm reading the Mueller report right now. I'm almost done with Volume 1. Can't wait to start on Volume 2, just because I, as an American citizen and also as your resident political nerd, I want to know what's going on, and I want to see it with my own eyes. And that doing things like that have really helped, because then if I hear something on TV or if I read something in the news, I can say, that wasn't my understanding or interpretation of it. Let's dig a little further.
And that's smart. You know what? We almost have to do that as individuals, as citizens, because, you look on cable news and they line up 15 pundits, and they're not at this point telling the news. They're giving their spin on it. So and
they're all talking at the same time.
Exactly. It's like, one of those bad rap concerts from the 1990s where everybody comes out with the mic and it's like 15 people rapping, right? And it's just chaos. And if you're turning to MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and you see this lineup of people and you miss the 15 minutes of news, and you log on and you see the cadre, the cornucopia of pundits spouting off what they're saying, you kind of, that line between news and punditry really blurs.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what helps too is and people might say, well, you've been on TV, why would you not do this? I don't watch a lot of TV. There are specific news shows that I do watch, but I try to diversify my media diet, if you will. I read a lot of my news. And so I'm a visual learner. I love to look at things and I can remember what they said. And I have a very photographic memory. That's what I'm trying to say. So I read a lot of my news. And then the way I hear it in my head as I'm reading it is a little bit different than when you're sitting there and you're, just watching 6 people trying to talk at the same time.
Let's be honest, it's written differently because the folks that are writing are worried about column inches. And they're a lot longer than, I got to get the soundbite in before this news break. Right.
Yeah, so it's really how you take it in. I try not to do all of any one thing. I love podcasts as well. There are some great podcasts out there because I love to listen to certain things, and I want to kind of imagine how the story happens. Rachel Maddow did a really great podcast about Spiro Agnew and the whole Nixon thing. That was something that I didn't know. That was an audio podcast. I watch her show. I'm on Twitter a lot, so I'm reading a lot of things digitally. Washington Post, New York Times, different, just all different kinds of things. I mean, I'm following all types of people and entities from, I think I follow the White House, but also following like state government stuff. So you get that local, regional, and national perspective, and international news is always great too. It's very interesting to see how Australian writers, British writers, Indian writers frame our news stories. So how was the Mueller report told on Al Jazeera?
Yeah.
Always really interesting.
So let's talk about what you do.
Yeah.
Your platform is called Prune Juice Media. Let's talk about that. It's a political platform, and you are doing commentary, do a little news reporting, right? More commentary, right?
More commentary, less news reporting, but it started off in 2010 as Prune Juice Media, and so a lot of people that may have been familiar with it or know of it or looking it up, it did start as that. I worked for about maybe 5 years doing blogging, and that was kind of because if you think about the social media times back then, I would say back then just 9 years ago,
when blogging while brown was huge.
When it was huge, when blogging itself was huge, and everybody had a blog, that's when I started. It was about 5 years in, I decided I had done some work on the side in radio that had nothing to do with my platform. And so I decided, I think, I want to start an audio podcast. I think what I want to do is take what I built with Prune Juice and turn it into a podcast. And so I went from posting multiple times a week and doing some really great things with that blog. It landed me on CNN.
Let's stop for a second. Let's reminisce.
Okay.
I remember seeing my friend tweeting that you were in the lobby at CNN. It was such a big moment because we were all like, y'all, he made it. It's been a long time, but he's here.
It had been, the first time it had been 18 months since I started. So I started in January 2010. By October of 2011, I was on CNN with Don Lemon. So that just goes to show you the power of blogging and social media and that kind of that intersection, because I literally intersected as someone who had 10 followers, 10 readers the first week, and met up with a major media outlet. And it kind of came together like that because I was able to network and use my voice and that kind of thing and talk about issues of the day in a real way. So 18 months later, I was sitting on set with Don Lemon.
That's amazing. Now tell us where you got the name. Why Prune Juice Media?
Well, if you think about what Prune Juice does for your body, it helps you flush through the BS. And so I said, I said, I think I can do that in politics because I like to tell things in a real way. And I like to talk about them the way that you and I talk about them when we're not on Skype, or if you're in the beauty shop or I'm in the barber shop or we're at home with our families. We don't talk about them in this kind of buttoned up MSNBC, CNN way. That's wonderful over there. But at home, real people talk about real issues in real ways. And so I wanted to bring that I wanted people to be able to turn on their TV and see somebody that looks like me, talk about issues in a way that I know that they're talking about them at the beauty shop and the barber shop and the auto parts store, wherever they are, and they're talking about. So that was the thing. And then flushing through, what is it that I really need to know? That's getting through that BS part. Because there's a lot of fluff out there, but what is it that I need to know and why do I need to know it?
Well, and you know what, Matt? Let's go back to 2005 because I want you to talk about your journey. Really important that everybody tells their story so they can get context and an authentic feel for who you are. But I also think that our journeys and our stories give us keys to our future. So we know our path, right? So I mentioned 2005. I was running my own agency.
You were. I was working. I was just finished working with a major global agency and was subcontracting with a local agency. So I was in the thick of doing PR. Just to take it back a couple steps further, I'm a kid from Cleveland, Ohio. It's where I grew up. Went to Ohio State, undergrad in marketing. Went to University of Georgia and got my master's in public relations. So that's how I kind of started. When you met me, was working in PR. So I was thick of working in that agency life and had just started my own business where I could subcontract with agencies. And then, bam, I met you through a mutual contact. And
what what did we work on? Did we work on Proline together? What brands did we work on?
We worked on Church's Chicken.
Yes, you worked on Church's because you were in Atlanta and it was so easy to have somebody there.
And
Church's was a client for almost 5 years. Boy, and I tell you what, whenever we showed up on site, because we were supporting the CEO and the officers, the chefs would come out and make that chicken like we'd never had it before.
Like we'd never had it. I had never been to a corporate function.
That chicken was good.
Dressed up. And the chicken was so good. The chicken was...
I gained 5 pounds every time I came to Atlanta.
Yes. I had never been to any corporate function and had fried chicken in any capacity.
And it was halal friendly. Because a lot of
and we get the biscuit too. It was like,
it was halal friendly because most of the franchisees were, Muslim or something. But that food was so good, and they explained to us that the head chef came out and would make the chicken for the brass. So I felt so we digress. But that chicken was good.
Very good.
So we worked together on Church's Chicken, and at some point you decided, you know what? And I think I'd moved on to something else by this time when you decided that it wasn't going to be about PR anymore, and you decided to blog.
Yeah, it was about... I started working in PR in 2004, so around about 2009. So I did about 5 years in PR and 5.5 years, and decided, there's something a little bit more. I was doing a lot of media relations, so you're prepping people to be in media, as you know. But I wanted to be that person that was talking about media. So around 2010, that was when I started the blog, and I said, I really don't know where this is going to go, but let me try this because I know I have a voice.
Just it. You realize you had something to say. And that's when a lot of PR people want to come from behind the veil, because it's not that, we just want the limelight. It's that we literally have content ourselves, right?
Right. Yeah, if you've been prepping somebody with talking points and content and how to present themselves in media outlets, you are probably well versed and equipped enough to do some of that at least yourself. You can be a spokesperson. Especially if you have... and I never worked in, just a kind of programming note, I never worked in politics before. I don't have a history degree. I don't have a political science degree, but I knew that I knew what I knew about politics. What a good time. And I knew that I had a voice.
It was like the perfect storm with digital and social like converging, and you had the CNNs and the MSNBCs kind of turning to the platforms to see what's going on in the social sphere. I remember the first time I realized that was happening. I literally tweeted something on the agency handle to Don Lemon, and he read it on the air. I still have the clip today. But they would they weren't filtering anything. They would just read it like right off the... And how scary would that be if they were doing that today? Oh.
Ooh. Yeah. Not good. But when you talk about that intersection, that's a good word, because that was how they found me. Was that at that time CNN was going out in 3 major markets, and they were looking for like 50 tastemakers. So these were people that were anywhere from doctors and OBGYNs, attorneys, bloggers like myself, all, stripes of people, and looking for 50 of them every year in these different markets to say, these might be the people that have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in Atlanta, in New York, nationally, in DC, wherever. Let's groom them. Let's not train them per se, but let's work with them a little bit and see if they can contribute something positive to our different shows. And so that's how I originally linked up with CNN. So that intersection.
So awesome. So you're relaunching the podcast. Talk about that.
I'm really excited. The podcast is called Politics and Prune Juice, which is the name as of 2015. It's going to relaunch as Matt E. Stevens Presents Politics and
love
Prune-Juice. Yes.
Little business coaching in there.
Your little El Michelle Smith.
Yes, we got to get the name out there, man.
Yes. So relaunching is that. I've been actually kind of nervous about doing it because I think it's been about 2 years since I've actually done a podcast. And we'll get to that in a second, but out the break. But so I'm really excited, really nervous. Obviously, we're in a completely different political environment. Although it is not one that I don't feel that Matt E. Stevens can't handle.
You're going to thrive. You're going to be even bigger.
Yeah.
You're going to have a recurring. I'm going to speak this. I'm going to speak some life over you. You're going to have a contributor role, recurring. Yes, on the network, broadcast or cable networks. We're going to see you at least twice a week. At least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I really do. I honestly receive it. I appreciate that. I speak it into life because we need to see more people like me.
You do.
Not just, obviously, Black man, yes, but real everyday people who can speak to issues the way that real Americans speak to them. I don't say we don't have that at all because we have some great people on TV that really do their thing.
But you know what? Let me stop you right there. When I think about some of the voices that I love, like Angela Rye, Simone Sanders, they actually come from the political sphere, which literally makes them not like us. Do you know what I mean?
I can see that. Yeah.
But I love them. Yeah. But you're right.
I love them too.
We need some more voices that are more common, if you will. Right?
Just everyday people who can speak to those issues, who can bring that opinion, who can bring those facts, because that's obviously that's the bedrock of what all of us should be doing. It's bedrock of what I do. Is having the factual information, reading and listening, and just I'm a news gatherer by nature. But I want to see that. I want to see more of that, and I want to bring that. I will be bringing that to several different media outlets. So
the podcast is going to air on what days, nights? When can we expect it? Or at least give us a date when it's going to drop. Do we know?
Well, it's going to be in late June, so definitely. I think it's going to start out. We're going to do every other week, and it's going to be very interview focused. So the first time I did the first 25 episodes, if you notice, there's a lot of me talking. There's a lot of me going over the issues and the news, things that I love to do and I can do. And I've done TV, print, and all that kind of stuff. But I said, if I was to pick one or two things from this experience, from those first 25 episodes, it was the conversation. Yeah. It was really, and not just because I don't know it all. I will fully admit that I don't know it all. But I learned so much from talking to other people like you, like the other people that were on my show. And that, to me, is when if I can learn something, I know that the audience is going to learn something as well. And that's what I really enjoy doing. So I really want to build around those interviews because there's so many, like you said, there's so many voices, so much noise going on now, and that's understandable. But let's pick some of those voices. Yeah. Let's talk to some of the people and start to shape how we look at.
Well, and the marketing person in me is just smiling because that's an influencer model that's going to double, quadruple your audience faster than you would if you were just out there doing it yourself and sharing on social. Hey, everybody, come listen to me because it's just your channel. Exactly.
And then I guess the interviewer in me, my friends always laugh, and they always say I'm always interviewing people, even when we're just having a little friend moment. Of course I am, because I want to know the information and what's the latest, and I want to share things that I've learned. So I kind of look at myself. My friends call me, they joke and say that I'm Oprah. But I also,
know what? Receive it.
I receive it. But I'll tell you this because I learned this from Oprah, was that I'm probably more like Gail. Because she's more newsy and she likes that little information and she likes having those conversations and talking to people. And I kind of think
Oprah's more live your best life now. Yes.
I like that. Nothing wrong with it. But I'm that kind of like the Twitter person and went on and let me look at my list and see what what's breaking in the news. And did you know this little factoid last week? I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Well, let me ask you this: what are you looking forward to most about this election season that's coming up?
changing the president.
Okay. Well, beyond that.
Beyond that, I think I'm looking forward to the conversations and seeing where those conversations lead me, where they lead us. I am definitely looking forward to getting through this list of presidential contenders. I'm also, from an issue standpoint, looking at voter suppression. And really seeing if we as Americans, we as people of color, can really come out to the polls and affect change in the ways that we need to.
You know what? It's crucial. It's crucial.
It is.
It's
it
nothing
really
to be
is.
played with now. Like,
yeah, because we got hostile foreign power in our elections. And
the soul of the nation is at stake here, people. No matter where you land on the spectrum, you got to know how crucial this is.
We got to show up and show out.
Well, one more time, give us your handles.
It's Instagram is going to be Mr. Prune Juice. That's MR_Prune_Juice. Twitter is Mr. Prune Juice, just MRPRUNEJUICE. You can reach me there anytime. So it is, those are great ways to follow me, to see what I'm up to. I post there a lot. I live tweet shows and speeches and all kinds of things, whatever kind of bubbles up and comes up. And,
I got your tagline. Yeah. Prune Juice Media, politically regular.
That's a good. All those people say
politically regular for regular people. regular conversation to keep you regular.
That Prune Juice didn't work, because if you look at all this BS going on out here, we need to think.
There you go. So, there you go. Matt, thank you so much for joining us, and we're gonna have you back. You know what? We're gonna have you back in the heart of the election season, when it's just really ratcheting off the chain, because crazy season will probably come early.
Yes, we actually have, for all your listeners, we have debates coming up in June. So about a month away, you'll see those on MSNBC. And so that will really be the kickoff. Yeah. This summer is the Iowa State Fair, so you're going to see all the candidates there. You're going to see them going all these different places. So there'll be a lot of times where people will need to look to people like myself to figure out what's going on, who's rising in the polls, who's falling. Those are just some great conversations. I always love to have those. But and I'm sure, obviously, because this president is still going to be this president at that time, and the I word is going to be getting bigger. Yeah. So we've got a lot of stuff, lot of different irons in the fire. Drama, irons in the fire everywhere. Just trying to figure out what is 2020 going to look like.
And you know what? I'm going to probably have Dr. Brooks back, my psychologist, my clinical psychologist, because... Man, I just remember I know what 2016 did to me in my mental health. Seriously, I was low for a long time.
Yeah, a lot of people were. A lot of people. I think it might be good to have Dr. Brooks on to talk to me and figure out, why do I do this?
What is wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? Why are we here?
Absolutely.
Those... You can get caught up in that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
And just even in the last year or so, I manage my time with cable news. I can't do. I'm a news junkie, and I used to just keep it on all day. I can't do it. My spirit can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I was saying earlier about reading. It's so important, because it kind of allows me to control the volume in my head of what's going on and all of what I'm taking in, and be able to parse through, what's happening.
Right.
Is just constantly hearing somebody's voice, and then there's the commercials and the volume.
It's too much. Overstimulation. Well, Matt, thank you so much.
But the only time on. That's when everybody can just stop.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the Culture Soup podcast. And if there's any other way other than listening to the podcast and then looking for you on that network news and cable news to show up frequently that we can do, let us know.
Yes. I would definitely do that, and thank you so much for having me. I cannot wait to come back and update everybody on what's going on.
We might have to make you a political correspondent. That would be great.
Oh, definitely. I'd be 100%
I would love that, just for the election season.
Definitely. You got to take your Prune Juice too on the Culture Soup podcast.
You need Prune Juice with your Culture Soup, don't you?
Do.
Keep you regular.
Hydrated and keep you regular. Keep your stomach full.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
All right, so y'all know to go to Prune Juice Media podcast to keep up with the elections and everything political for this election season. Thank you so much, Matt Stevens. Coming up on the Coaching Corner episode of the Culture Soup Podcast, coming up June 14th, that's next Tuesday, on the Culture Soup Podcast, we have none other than Touré from MSNBC, Rolling Stone, Vibe, you name it, he's done it. He is a prolific writer. He is a political pundit, but we will not do a lot of that. We are going to concentrate on what it is to write books. He's a writing coach, so you'll want to hear from him. And then soon I will select my laser coaching subject for the next podcast to come up in July. So stay tuned for that. Then we're going to have later on Jackie Reed talking about the Black vegan movement online. She has something special coming up. You'll know her from the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and she fills in on MSNBC and NBC from time to time. All right, folks. Find us online at theculturesoup.com, on Instagram and Twitter at The Culture Soup, on Facebook at The Culture Soup Podcast. And of course, you can find me at lmichellesmith.com. See you next week. The Culture Soup Podcast is a production of No Silos Communication.